welcome back to Qigong. How's everybody feeling? So for the last last few weeks, we've been doing the Badawan Jin, or 8 pieces of brocade sequence. And today we're gonna bring some new Qigong to the table. So what we do is we kind of iteratively go through different Qigong sets, and we spend anywhere from a couple weeks to sometimes more than a month learning the sequence. And then we practice it a few times, and then we kind of move on to new material. But if you just came in maybe last week or something, we'll get back to Badawan Jin pretty quickly. Like you'll see that we sequence through it fast. And then as we add more material for the online programs, and they're also on there. You guys might not know, but there's like online humans too. Then we'll learn even more new material. And so by the end of it, you can have lots of Qigong. But let's go ahead and get warmed up. So the very first thing we do is we get into our basic postural platform, which is called Wu Ji, or empty stance. So the first thing that we do is we elevate through the tops of our heads. And a lot of times people will so there's Chinese translation is what guides us, and it has for a long time now. And so the correction often is given as tuck your chin. But if you feel the difference between sort of tucking your chin in, which closes something in your throat, versus thinking about lifting from the back and elevating from the crown of your head up, which lets your chin drop slightly, you'll feel that it actually is more open through the whole neck structure. So we're going to kind of unpack some of the things that we go through quickly today, just so we're all on the same page. The second thing we're going to do after elevating through the tops of our heads is we place the tip of the tongue in the roof of the mouth. The easiest way to get a sense for it is to think about if you were sort of like wiping the top of your mouth like you have peanut butter stuck up there. All right. And so we're not like making a pointy tongue, and we're not holding it there with any tension. It's just resting sort of behind the top teeth. The next thing we think about is our shoulders. And this is often where most of us hold tension. So learning to unwind this is difficult, and it takes time. You have to practice to unwind it. You can't just think like, oh, my shoulders are tight, I'm going to release them. It's not that easy. So what we can do is first to engage the shoulders is lift them up. And this is obviously like a tense contracted position. We're using our levator scapula, and our traps are getting tight, and then let them go. So you can feel how when the shoulders truly drop, they actually are sinking onto the rib cage. And what this often does is it kind of brings our arms in a little bit. And so the Chinese instruct us to allow a little space in the armpits. It says a sparrow's egg in classics. I like that. Although I've never actually played with sparrow eggs, so I don't know. But it's not a whole egg. It's definitely not like a goose egg or anything that big. Our arms are relaxed and hanging by our sides. So for whatever reason, there's always kind of an impetus to have some activity with our hands. Like you'll see people start to put their hands in a position, but we're not doing that yet. There are lots of standing postures where we do, but this isn't one of them. From here, it can be useful to actually skip down to your feet and pay attention to your foot placement on the floor. So our feet need to be about our shoulder width apart, but not the tips of our shoulders. The apex of our trapezius muscles is what we're using as a guide. So it's like the very top of our trapezius sinks down through our legs, all the way down through our feet. So from here, what we do is we let the tailbone drop. And the classical description is that it sinks like a weighted line or a plumb line. So this happens simultaneously with the elevating through the top of the head. So as our tails drop, we can think of the head elevating, and it creates an elongation of the spine that can feel really good if you suffer from back pain. Our hips, this area, the inguinal region, is called the qua in Chinese. And so we sit the qua. So it's like we have the thought that we're about to sit down. So we're not like getting into a squat or anything, but we have this dropping or sinking of the tailbone that creates a sitting of this space here. Our knees are rotated out over the balls of the feet, and they're slightly bent. So this will be, for most of us, the most challenging area to release, where we stand with no extra muscle, basically. It's like we're trying to create a stackable set of alignments that allow our muscles to release completely. Obviously, you're using some muscle to be standing up, otherwise we just collapse, right? But we're not like trying to, hold any tension as we're using this posture. So our knees are rotated out, they're slightly bent, and we're sinking downward while elevating through the tops of our heads. So the Chinese call this rising while falling. And there's this sense that your muscles are like a big heavy coat that are hanging off of a coat hanger, which are your bones. And there's a word in Chinese which is really useful to know if you're a Qigong practitioner, which is called song. And what it means is that you've released your tension, but you haven't collapsed your structure. So the character is of a tree with snow over it. So it's like if you think of a big tree that's got branches that are strong and hold their structure, but there's snow that's making them sink down a little bit. That's what some is. That's the character. So that's what we're shooting for with all of our postural holdings. So this is Wu Ji, which means empty stance. And it's the basic platform by which we start all of our Qigong practice. Okay. So from here, you can practice this as a standing posture, but my experience is that in Qigong classes, making people stand around for 10 minutes or more will quickly lose students. So it's usually good to practice it in the morning, and you can find that it actually generates quite a bit of muscular fatigue at first. You'll feel your legs start to shake and stuff like that. And so you can play with that at home. From here, we're going to go into a sequence that's called the Qigong, or foundational exercises. And these are just joint mobility warm-ups. They're part of a much larger set from a martial art called Bagua. But the first of them, everybody can think of elevating through the top of the head a little bit more. And we're going to just simply rotate the head and neck like we're shaking the head no. And this can be played at breathing speed, but generally we do not. We just kind of breathe naturally, and we focus on going to the edge of discomfort, but not through it. It's like a door that's gotten a little creaky, and so we put a little WD-40 on the hinges and open and close it for a few minutes, That's basically what we're doing with all of these. The eyes sort of attempt to gaze behind you a little bit. There's no rep range, but in Taoism, they like factors of 8. So you can do like 8, 16, 24, that kind of thing. In my hub, one of my first serious Qigong teachers had us do 32 of everything. But one time he caught me actually counting, like my mouth must have been moving or something. And he sort of barked in Chinese, like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm counting to 32 because you told me to." And he was like, "No, you idiot. You don't count to 32. You just think the number 32 and then do it, and it'll be 32 times." And I was like, "No, it won't." And he, but you learn quickly not to argue with in my head. Let's do the next one. So this is the chicken pecks the rice. And what we're going to do is think about elevation through the top of the head, which is going to open all the way down to the pubic bone. And then we're going to flex forward and feel it down to the tip of the tailbone. So we elevate up, and then we gently contract forward. There's a ligament that runs anterior to your spine, so like towards the interior of your body. And when we open like a bow and close it, we're actually letting that longitudinal ligament open and close a little. So if you suffer from back pain, sometimes doing movement like this over many weeks or even months of practice, can slowly unwind things that are holding tension, that are sort of a deep structure. If my head is 32. The Russians do at their age. But I mean, I'm not doing 45 of these, and I don't expect you guys to do either. There's a relatively famous story of a Russian neurosurgeon who would do an hour of joint mobility on his hands every day. Like just his hands, he would rotate every single thing. And I mean, that was his living, so it makes sense to me. Okay, our next movement, we're gonna put our hands in the shoulder well, and we're gonna rotate the shoulder in a full range of motion. But when we unpack it a little bit, what we wanna think about is sort of piercing across the body so our palms are up. And then we're gonna rotate to palm down on the back stroke of the circle. And we keep our hands attached to our body so we can make sure that we're moving from the body. I wouldn't invite you to do this, but if you watch, this is disconnected. Like I'm just moving my arm without moving my body with it. When I move my whole body, my trunk is what's guiding the movement, and it keeps my shoulder very safe. And then we can change direction. So it's just the exact reverse of the movement. So when it's coming down, now it's palm down or palm up in the front, and it comes up, palm down in the back. Everybody looks perfect. I'm always a little impressed when people do it right the first time because I never do anything right the first time. Anybody have like a consistent snap or pop in their shoulder every time they go through a range of motion? Good. If you do, it's normal, but what you want to do is sort of figure out how to rotate through that so that it doesn't pop, and then practice it that way. Let's do the other arm. So pierce the palm up, rotate the palm down.
I did have a place where I was doing that when I first started doing this.
And now you don't. That's the way. Yeah, these sequences are super simple, but to me, there's nothing more beneficial that I've done than joint mobility training. It's like the unsung hero of all fitness routines. And of course, it's the one that everybody skips, but I can say being a middle-aged person in a combat sport, I'm the only person in my gym who's not like injured at any given time. And I swear to God, it's just these things. And you can sort of note that you're also rotating your hips, rotating your back, your head's sort of on a swivel. So you're always mobilizing everything. Let's change directions. This same movement becomes a kidney exercise in our 5-element sequence. It's a covering palm and a martial sequence and spinal sequence that we do. And it hides in all kinds of more complex movement patterns. So learning how to keep your shoulder connected to your body through a full range of motion is a big part of Chinese movement training, period. Okay. So our next one There's some that we kind of insert in and out, so if you come a few months from now and we skip past these, don't be like, oh, we forgot. Yeah, we just, it's flexible, you can do certain things more or less. Generally, the distal extremities are getting what they need when you're doing these big, full range of motion things. It's like if you go to the gym and you do a compound lift, you don't have to do like 20 little lifts, right? But there are certainly mobilizations for every part of your body, and you can almost figure them out just by knowing that you're always flexing, extending, and rotating each joint when you do them. So even if you do your fingers, it's the same thing, really. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna place our fingers between on the chest. There's kind of a point that's right at the middle of your breastplate or your sternum. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna be opening and closing our scapula. So we're opening and closing the chest, but we're gonna rotate the shoulders while opening and closing the scapula. So, most of us have figured out how to like rotate our shoulders, but this is really squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then I'm keeping my fingers in my chest to make sure I'm opening my chest while I'm doing this. Chinese call this buttoning the scapula, which I never really understood until I saw Chinese buttons on the traditional Kung Fu outfit. They're little balls and there's like a loop. And so the ball has to kind of like snug into the loop and you have to turn it a little bit. So it makes sense that way. But not really makes sense. There are times where I'm like, that is categorically not the same as what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Did my health on me really annoying? I was young and I asked a lot of questions and I would write stuff down. So I would take my notes and like throw them in the trash. He was my first teacher. So I don't ever throw notes in the trash, but I was always like, why? Why is it called buttoning the scapula? And he's like, will you shut up, Bryan?
Most of my tries to get involved.
Yeah. Yeah, and it will. I mean, you're using levator scapula when you do this, so that'll raise the trapezius. But the trick is to sort of feel the difference between opening and closing while rotating through versus like just rotating the shoulders, which will really just be a trap exercise. Let's quickly bounce on our heels a little bit just to release any tension in the traps. Okay. So for our next trick, we're gonna put our hands on our low backs and we're gonna slowly rotate the hips. What a lot of people do initially is they rotate their low back, which is bad for it and probably nothing you wanna do. So you wanna keep your back really stable and then you wanna rotate the hips. And a lot of times there's gonna be a part that's sort of kinked or maybe a little bit tight or painful. And so what you do is you just go to the edge of discomfort and you go really slow. And that'll kind of machine out any old scar tissue or myofascial adhesions that are holding tension in your structure. To have a healthy, strong low back, what you want is you want a fairly braced, tight low back structure, but you want really mobile hips. So the idea of sort of stretching out the low back, while there's a place for it and it can be wonderful, the Chinese don't do a lot of it. You don't see them doing like back bends very much. What you see is them mobilizing their hips while keeping their back strong. And it's interesting because you can get very flexible that way, but let's change direction. So this movement's called rotating the hips to strengthen the low back and kidneys. And that gives you a sense of how they feel about it. There's so many kind of, beautiful sounding Chinese names, and then it gets translated and it's like rotate the shoulder for shoulder pain, it's like unglamorous. But most often in China, they just call this hula hips. They totally have hula hoops over there and they like them a lot. And so they're like, yeah, it's hula hips. Okay, next one, we're gonna place our hands down in the quad or the inguinal groove. It's not up on the hips, but down where your leg meets your groin kind of. And when we sit, we're gonna remember to elevate through the tops of our heads. And this should put a sense of stretch on your low back, like a little bit of traction in your spine through your low back. And what we're gonna do is slowly make a circle on the floor with the tip of our tailbone. So we're mobilizing our sacrum. It's very normal to have pops with this. Sometimes you'll get one big one that feels kind of like a chiropractic adjustment or something, and then you'll go like, oh. But sometimes it's not like that. It's more like a little ligamentous snapping feeling that's not quite comfortable. It can be kind of painful. It's unfortunately very normal to have that, but if you do this every day for a while, it'll go away. Just go easy and slow and kind of to the edge of that discomfort. Don't like grind through it if it hurts. Let's change direction. Probably you're noticing as we go through these that your legs, if you've been sitting in your stance, your legs are getting quite a workout during all of these. So you can feel free to kind of shake them out before we go into the next one. So our next joints are going to be our knees. Does anybody have any fully torn ACL or meniscus? Doesn't really matter that much, but if you have a full ACL tear, you can still do these, but you have to be careful. You have to take it slow and go really small range of motion. I've seen fighters with no ACL be able to fight though, because of these kinds of exercises. So they're good for any tearing. But what we're going to do is sit, hold the knees tight together, and then we're going to make knee circles while keeping the knees and the feet and the legs tight together. We kind of extend the back towards the ceiling as we straighten. This is, again, one of the singular most useful exercises I've ever learned. A 350-pound kid, and he is a kid, he's like 22, named Andy, scissored both my knees with his legs on the outside. And I felt like things buckle and I fell down. I'm an old guy, you know, I kind of was like, ah, and they were fine. And I swear to God, it was because of this particular movement that I didn't have like a torn something. And that is not a movement in jujitsu, by the way, we don't do that. Let's change direction. All right, and now we're gonna flex and extend. We're not going beyond our toes. Not that there's anything particularly bad about knee bends beyond your toes, but just because it's not how we do it in this. And when we're extending, we're elevating the low back towards the ceiling. Everybody feeling good?
Yeah.
All right, last mobility is our ankles. So there are two ways that we can play this, and we'll do both. One is that we're going to root, so if this is our Wuji stance, we're going to turn a foot out slightly. We're going to post all of our weight on it. And then we're going to bring our other foot straight out in front of us like we were, I don't know, kicking a ball with the heel of our foot. And we're going to rotate the ankle while balancing. And what you can do is feel in your trochanter how you're actually rotating your whole leg. And this trains balance really well. You can probably see the the rooted foot, how the ankle starts tracking. And that's building all those little stabilizer muscles. It's really good for you, no matter how much your balance feels funky, that's the good stuff. All right, let's cue the other foot. And what you can do is you can kind of sit into the stance and focus on a point on the floor about 8 or 9 feet in front of you. And that'll help you sink into this and balance a little bit better. And change direction. And what I'll say is that you can look at Dave over here, and he's doing it the other way, where you place your ball of your foot on the floor and you rotate around the ball of the foot, which is nice because it gives you a little foot massage. So let's all just do that.
It's really good if your left foot is always gone.
Yeah. They're equally good movements. You can feel that one trains balance a little bit more and the other one kind of massages out the foot a little bit more. So they're useful. Make sure you go both directions. And then we'll switch feet. And that is the Qigong, which is, well, it's a portion of the Qigong, which is our foundational exercises. So, any questions about any of this? That's okay. Hit it.
When we were doing the shoulder mobility, I noticed that when in class with Christine, we were out here in this space. I noticed that you were kind of in this space and you went palm up when you came back down. Is that a stylistic thing? It seemed like you were really it really looked martial.
Well, yeah, there is
Yes.
elements of that in there, but one of the things that you can think about, so this is completely accurate, where it's like all out in front of me.
Right.
And actually, ironically, this is much more martial, because generally, if you're like I try to get really full range of motion when I do these.
You're
Yeah, and then ish. But when I'm doing it, I'm just feeling where I'm restricted in that day.
Yeah.
And so like some days I'm much more like sore and tired from something and I'll do it lower. But
feels.
if you think about what are the key elements of that? There's piercing, there's drilling, and then there's sinking. Right? And so the idea is put together as it translates to rise, drill, fall, overturn. So I'm rising, I'm drilling.
So we're actually drilling like with the fingers, like we do with some of the exercises.
You can use your fingers to point, yeah, because one of the things that you'll see is people who have a martial background will often practice a palm with this. So this is called tile palm. It's like you're holding a thin tile or like a narrow kind of a thing. And so if you practice that way, you'll find that it changes the nature. Your arm sort of feels like a sword while you do it. So your arm will feel very flexible but straight. But we're never like locked out, and we're not like, we don't want to disconnect our arm from our body. On the other hand, Tai Chi people play it very soft and loose, so it's this kind of like more, I don't know, flowy, cottony feeling. There's a saying that, and this won't mean much if you don't know Chinese martial art names, but so Tai Chi is very relaxed, flowy, you're allowing energy to come at you. The opposite of that is Shinyi, which looks like you're like moving in a line forward and you never ever retreat, and it's got this element of like steel on the outside. Bagua is circular and it's like a flexible sword. So if you've ever seen a kung fu movie and you've seen the swords, like in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the swords go like when they strike with them. And so that's the idea, is that you're straight but not straight, and you've got this flexibility that is springy, and that's the quality of movement of Bagua. Okay, so to continue the sequence we're learning today, there's different pieces to it, but it constitutes kind of a full warm-up and movement pattern that gives you, I think, most of what you need out of Qigong. So the next thing we're going to be doing is called the 3 swings, which I'm looking at Penny because I know these are some of my favorites. The 3 swings.
Oh, the swing.
Yeah.
Oh, we love the swing.
Yeah, we all love this swing. So What we're gonna do first is practice an exercise called the bear, and that's gonna teach us sort of how we move through three-dimensional space and shift our weight. So we're back in our Wuji stance. We elevate through the tops of our heads, shoulders sink onto the ribs. We're gonna sit the quad, little bit of space in the armpits, tip of the tongue rests on the roof of the mouth. And we're sinking down through our feet, which are shoulder width. Our knees are slightly bent and rotated over the feet. And what we're gonna do is simply rotate our hips to one side while not collapsing the knee. And then we're gonna shift our weight in that direction. Rotate, shift. Rotate, shift. And this will become a kind of figure eight movement after a few moments, where you kind of pick up the next weight shift before you fully finished rotating. So it's interesting, like, if I were to go like 1, 2, 1, 2, this is very kind of staccato feeling to me. But what I'm doing is I'm like rounding those edges out and letting this just, it feels to me like an unwinding. And this is called the bear. You can play this in deeper stances and get a nice little leg workout out of it. But it's not necessary. Generally, it's best to do Qigong to like a comfortable stop so that you're not going to the maximum end range of your movement. So I'm shifting my weight and I'm rotating my hips. And this is called the bear. Okay. Oh, I'm still well on the camera. Be off the squeaky part. So what I would invite you guys to do from here, and there's a little bit of a transition, but is start to let this movement unwind even more and let your arms be like noodles that swing in the direction you're turning your body. So the way that you kind of generate the force for your arms is it's like if I've turned all the way this way that I can turn and my arms have swung, it's like I'm playing with the timing a little bit to get my arms to swing the other way. And once I've kind of gotten the hang of it, my arms will start to gently flap at my trunk. And yeah, it's tricky. You have to simultaneously really relax your upper body while using timing and weight shifting with your lower body. But you're all doing it now. This is the first swing. It's often called knocking at the life gate. The life gate is your low back on the main one. It's actually your kidneys. The different word for low back in Chinese. Yao means like your waist. But we're also tapping at our kidney and liver region. And then it's also your digestive organs, or like your spleen and pancreas. So you're giving your body this kind of gentle pounding massage, which is very good for it. And often we'll do this in such a manner where we kind of just let it run. Like there's a good idea of sort of like letting yourself get bored and sort of falling asleep on your feet. Okay, everybody relax for a sec. So there's another way that this can be played, which is called the constant bear. And this is like, it's still a hip turn, but we eliminate the weight shift almost completely. And this is a really interesting movement to me because what you're doing is you're adding zero force to the arms. So we're literally just rocking our hips back and forth. But it's a good exercise for kind of getting a sense of how little energy you want to be putting into your arms. So a lot of us initially will be like this. And that sort of means that we're holding a little bit of tension in our arms. Other times we'll find that like the hands and the arms are really loose. And we're able to feel how the muscles kind of slough off the bones. So the reason these movements are called bear exercises is because of the quality of bear's musculature. If you've ever like watched a nature program and seen a big bear move, they have these like rolly muscles and they're big and strong, you know, but their shoulders are really rolly and they have this kind of like, and so you're going for that loose, relaxed quality. And after a while, you'll often start to feel, if you do this for like, I don't know, 5 minutes, it'll start to feel like you're not consciously generating a movement anymore. You're just sort of like a little perpetual movement machine. And it starts to feel like there's something unwinding deeper than just the muscles of your arms. So then we can take this back out with the weight shift, keeping that same uber relaxed quality of the constant bear. Good, I did it. Everybody's more relaxed now. And no worries if this doesn't happen the first time, but you can play with the timing of your weight shift. And it'll make your arms go up and down. So it's like you stop the movement short and that creates a kind of a little whip. And it's very relaxed. If you're not relaxed, it won't happen. But that's okay, because that's what we're here for. It's not like, oh, you're not relaxed, you can't do Qigong. It's like, that's the point of the Qigong. So if you feel like you can't do it, don't feel bad about it. Be like, well, good, this is a perfect exercise for me. There's an element of what's called iron body training in this, where we are striking at different points and areas. But we're not striking like, with force. We're just letting the relaxed sort of energy of the movement carry over hands wherever they may. If you do start generating force, don't like hit yourself in a way that hurts. Cup your palm a little bit. And when it's percussive, it shakes the chi and it allows for your body to break through blockages, is what the Chinese consider it to do. So just play with it, let it kind of, see if you can change the timing and goof around with it. All right, relax again for a sec. So the second swing is the same movement, but we're adding a little bit of footwork in. So what you can do is find your Wujie posture again, and we're going to simply present the ball of the foot to our side and then step back again. So present the ball of the foot, step back. Boop, back. Boop. And then you find the rhythm of stepping in a more continuous way. So it's like step out and out and out and out, and you're all naturally swinging your arms. So just let that happen. Be a little bit wary of your knees, like try not to pivot on your knee too much. It's more like a step that roots you back down again. But you'll feel how this does create some three-dimensional twisting through the knee, which if done lightly is very, very good for it. Strengthens the collateral, or the lateral and medial collateral ligaments. It can be done gentle and relaxed. Step, 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 step. When I was teaching this online, it wasn't very clear when I was saying step, step, whack. So now I'm very conscientious that the whack is your arms. They thought there was a third step they were missing. And I felt really bad because it was like a month of that, where they were like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Everybody looks great. And then the third swing. So the third, and you can play any one of these or none of them. Like these are a wonderful exercise. I like them as a warm up. So if I'm gonna do jujitsu or I'm gonna lift weights or whatever, I'll do this for like 5 minutes beforehand, and I get pleasantly warm, but not like overly warm, I guess. It's the true definition of like a warm up. A lot of times people warm up too heavily and they actually are getting like a close to maximum exertion workout in their warm up, and then they're smoked and they can't do whatever they wanted to do. So this is a nice way to actually have higher function after you warm up. So the third swing, I'm gonna come down here. And what we're gonna be doing is the same footwork. So we're turning out, presenting the ball of the foot. But the hands are gonna be doing like a big W. So let's start with our right foot out and our hands up to the right. We're gonna step to the center and swing them to the center. Then we're gonna step to the left and swing out to the left, center, right, center, left. Oh. And you'll see that there's kind of like a little circle in the middle, but don't worry too much about that. Everybody looks great. I can see you all because of our collection of haunted mirrors. They're probably not haunted. I've been reading a Stephen King short story book at night and it's spooking me out.
You like it darker?
Yeah, you reading that too?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just got through the one with the haunted stroller.
yes.
Yeah, that was spooky as hell. Now everything's haunted. The mirrors, the strollers. You can probably write a story about like a haunted lamp, and I'd read it.
You ever read Monkey Shadows?
Oh, yeah.
That's scary.
All right, that scares the shit out of me. He's a scary dude. By all accounts, he's very nice. But okay, so those are the three swings. We have, well, we have our bear exercise. Right, where we're just not even thinking about our arms. We have constant bear, where we just simply rotate the hips and let the arms completely relax. We add in the weight shift, which becomes the first swing and knocking at the life gate. We have the second swing where we add in our step. And then we have the third swing where we go up to the center, up to the center. And no worries, we'll be doing these in sequence for a few weeks, so you'll have plenty of time to get them. Also, you're welcome to video me if you're like, I really want to practice a sequence, but I don't remember it when I go home. It's fine, just don't share it, because then your other friend will be sad and angry. Okay, let's do one more movement. We have time. So this kind of puts everything we just did together into a shenfa or movement pattern, which is like, so any one movement from Badawan Jin is a shenfa, it's a movement pattern. So this is a single movement pattern that can be played as its own Qigong, and it's called cloud hands or wave hands like clouds. So we're gonna get into a slightly wider than our Wuji stance for this. And everybody can put a hand up like they were waving high. And then the other hand, it's like you're pressing down onto a table or something. And you're looking away, you still have space in the armpits. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna rotate and shift our weight. Okay, then we're gonna alternate the palms. And we're gonna rotate and shift our weight. Alternate the palms, rotate and shift. Yeah. Alternate and shift. So when we put this movement together, you can sort of think about the swings and how we're using the exact same body dynamic to generate this movement. Just considering like how much we wanna overload you with explanations as to what. I mean, basically, the whipping quality of the swings is what informs this. But we've now slowed it way down and we're making sure we're posturally correct through the whole movement. And this is where we can kind of play a little bit with breathing. So you might breathe in as you alternate the palms. And then breathe out as you come across to the other side. But we don't force the breath ever. So if you find yourself kind of like, just relax and breathe naturally. You'll breathe soon enough. I mean, you're always breathing, otherwise you're dead. And there's no real right or wrong as to the kind of amplitude or range of your arms. You could just as well play this where it's like really, really, really big. As long as you're not like breaking your alignment and getting into some weird position, or you could play it like you have little T-Rex arms. And then it starts to look a lot more like, the martial art that it comes from. You go. Yeah, and the circles can go in either direction too. So again, don't worry about it. It'll make it get screwy if you try to change it midstream sometimes. But so right now, the circle is essentially coming across my body. So this is what one arm is doing. And then the other arm is just simply alternating and making the opposite circle. But we don't do it all like we do it flowy and slow and relaxed. Fun story, one of the only times a Chinese internal martial art like sort of worked for me in a martial way wasn't in a fight and it wasn't in a a sanctioned referee fight. This dude randomly tried to sucker punch me down in Williamsburg. And it's interesting, if you could just come for a sec, can I?
Yeah, you can beat the shit out of
No, I'm not beat anything. He came in with a punch with his right arm, and this happened, and I was like, oh my god, it was clown hands. I'm like, so clown hands saved the day. And I was like, I'll be gosh darn, I didn't think clown hands would ever be the thing that would be really martial. You'd think it's gonna be like big, but no, it's just like, whoa. And then he kept walking, and I was like, okay. So, watch out for sucker punches, but if you do, you didn't use clown hands. All right. So the last thing we'll do is we'll close out. So it's like we're gathering everything from above us and then sinking and falling asleep on our feet. This is called pouring the cream on top. We breathe in. And that's Qigong. Everybody have fun? That's a good little sequence. So that sequence comes from the Yang style of Tai Chi Chuan or Tai Chi. And it's generally a good warm-up for almost anything. And you don't have to do all of it. Like if you don't remember all 3 swings, most of the time this one comes pretty naturally. And so you'll find that this starts coming out of you. Like you'll be getting ready to do something like you're kind of like feel tight. So that's the best way to play it. It's just naturally whenever you feel sort of tight or anxious or stressed out. And it'll get your chi flowing and it'll lengthen the fascia, which is really valuable. And it also shunts synovial fluid and blood through all of your joints. So it's good for you. But awesome. Any questions about any of that? Okie dokie. Well, then we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.